I'm Edwin Warfield, the publisher of Citybiz, and I'm honored today to interview Alfredo Riascos, who is the principal and broker at Gridline Properties. Welcome, Alfredo.
How are you, Edwin? Thank you for having me on board. I'm excited to join your show, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your time. How did you get started in real estate, and how did you get to the role that you have now?
It's a long story, but in a nutshell, I got started in real estate by complete accident. Growing up and probably throughout my high school years, I kind of had this image of being this like Wall Street raider. I wanted to be in finance. I wanted to be in a fast-paced business that included sales and included being on the phone a lot. It included a lot of handshaking. And you kind of have this image based on movies, based on, Gordon Gekko type image. And, it's not until you get a little bit older and you get thrown into the real world that life really starts to kind of direct you in a certain course. And, what ended up happening was I was down from college. I was looking for an internship and I wanted, a job that gave me some sort of experience in the business world. So I looked up a bunch of opportunities, a bunch of internships, and I actually landed on one via Craigslist. Back then, Craigslist used to be a widely used platform. It's no longer that used anymore, but I went on Craigslist and I saw this pretty great ad that indicated that there was a job opportunity for a real estate developer in Miami Beach. The job entailed working under a successful developer. It entailed fast-paced environment, ability to work yourself up in the food chain, and all the check boxes that I was looking for at that age. So I got excited. I made a phone call. I reached out to the employer. They gave me an interview the next day. I put on the following day a suit that was probably about 2 sizes too big for me, and I went down to the interview process in Miami Beach, Florida, and in my head, I was envisioning that I was going to walk into this like grand Class A office building in glitzy Miami Beach. I was going to be greeted by security personnel at the ground level that was going to tell me where to go, penthouse suites. I was going to meet some, receptionist that was then going to guide me to a conference table. And it was actually the complete opposite of that. I arrived at a rinky-dinky 2-story building. I printed out the ad on my way there. I made it a point to get there probably 20 minutes earlier. I called when I was there just to verify if I was in the right place. And they're like, yeah, sir, just park in the street. You'll walk in through the back. There's a management office and you'll be able to meet the person that you're scheduled to meet at that time. So I park my car. I look around. I'm in some kind of dicey neighborhood in Miami Beach. I finally find the place. I walk into a small management office. The immediate thought was that it smelled like cigarette and old papers. There was a receptionist there. She's like, "You're Alfredo?" I'm like, "Yes." And Dominic will be here in a couple of minutes. Just sit over there. It made me wait probably 20, 30 minutes for Dominic to show up. In my head, I'm thinking, where am I? Who's Dominic? How is this going to turn into the image that I once had? And, all of a sudden Dominic walks in, says, "Are you Alfredo?" He goes, "Are you ready to start today?" By the way, I'm sitting down in a suit. It's hot. Dominic is wearing shorts. The receptionist is also underdressed. I'm asking myself, why am I in a suit? Where am I? Who are these people? But in that, call it 2-minute process with Dominic, I saw Dominic probably take 2 phone calls, and it immediately kind of gave me a little bit of an insight into what Dominic did. In the phone calls, he referred to the lender, the tenant, this, that, everything fast-paced. And, as soon as we started talking, he went straight to the point. He's like, "Look, I manage and own about 350 apartments in Miami Beach. I need somebody that helps me out with absolutely anything that I need. It could be maintenance. It could be leasing. It could be anything and anything. You just need to be here to help me." And I said, "Well, and, when do you want me to start?" And he's like, "Are you ready to take $8 an hour?" I said, in my head, by the way, I was showing up at a non-paid internship. So when he said $8 an hour and he said, "Are you ready to start tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I think I could start tomorrow." And the next day I showed up and I started learning from Dominic. And one of my first responsibilities was to lease out many of these multifamily apartments in this complex that they managed in Miami Beach. And I immediately got hooked on the art of the deal, meeting a tenant, negotiating terms, signing a lease, running to the grocery store to get a money order. And within 2 weeks, I was completely immersed in the real estate transaction world. And that was kind of like my entryway into the industry at age 19.
Great. So tell me about Gridline Properties. What are the primary services that Gridline Properties provides?
So, long story short, we're a commercial real estate brokerage. We sell and we lease buildings in South Florida. However, we're hyper focused in the urban core corridors of Miami, Florida. We do a lot of investment sales up and down neighborhoods like downtown Miami, Wynwood, Alapata, Midtown Miami, the Design District, Little Haiti, and recently we've been doing a lot of stuff in Broward as well. So predominantly we've been geographically focused along those corridors. However, in the last 24 months, we're doing a lot more stuff in Broward. We're doing a lot of stuff in Hialeah. We've even done some deals in the west coast of Florida, so we're starting to grow that presence. But it really all boils down to third-party brokerage services, predominantly leasing and sales services for owners.
And so what are some of the exciting transactions you've been recently involved in and some that are coming up?
Yeah, so, every transaction, as cheesy as it sounds, is exciting. Every transaction requires specific skill sets, patience, a lot of hand-holding, a lot of babysitting, as we call it. But, some of the really notable ones that we've been involved with recently, one of the most probably compelling ones was assemblage with Relaya Group in Wynwood. Last year, we represented Relaya Group, which is a local developer out of South Florida. They built several noteworthy condo projects as well as office buildings, predominantly in the Brickell area of Miami. And they were really keen on entering the Wynwood marketplace, and we have a lot of presence in Wynwood. So dating back to kind of like the early days of the pandemic, midsummer 2020, we got together with them and they said, look, we think that there might be some opportunities to finally grow some presence in the Wynwood neighborhoods. We want to be very careful as to how we go about entering those markets. They're markets that we've never transacted in, much less built on. So we need to understand what the market conditions are like in that specific Wynwood neighborhood. We would like for you guys to guide us and show us some of the market dynamics in that area. And that's exactly what we did. We started working with them in late 2020, and we ended up closing two large development transactions with them along 29th Street in Wynwood. Right now, they're going to permitting on their first project, which is called the Mohawk at Wynwood. If you were to Google it or look it up, you'll see a lot of press revolving that project. That was a $22 million transaction that we did with them. And then a few months after that transaction closed, we worked with them on the second project, which is also another development project called The Ryder. The Ryder is going to be predominantly focused on short-term rentals, and it's being built directly adjacent to Mohawk. So I think that those are two very compelling and noteworthy transactions that we're involved in, predominantly because they were large-size transactions. B, you're working with a very experienced and very sound development team. We always like to work with people that are actually going to make a mark on our neighborhoods. And I think lastly speaking, I think once these projects are all said and done, I think that they're gonna be incredibly influential projects for the area. I think that these guys are going above and beyond in terms of design, in terms of the elements that they've chosen as part of their design. And I think it's really going to change the landscape of that 29th Street corridor in Wynwood. So we're very lucky to have worked with, not only with them as a buyer, but we also worked very closely with the seller on those transactions. And I think what makes a transaction special is when every side of the transaction is happy with the outcome. The owners had owned that land for a long time. They had a bad experience with the two previous buyers on that transaction, and Relaya Group came in, they delivered, they said what they were going to do, they did what they said they were going to do. So I think it worked really well for everyone involved in that transaction.
And so what are the growth plans for Gridline Properties?
We're very excited. We're growing. We're actually, right before this phone call, I was on the phone with one of our designers. We're expanding our office space. We just signed a brand new lease in a building in the Gridline station area, which I consider kind of like the crossroad between downtown Miami, Overtown, and Wynwood. We're expanding our office to a new building that recently got finished. So we're growing the office. We're slowly growing the team. And the growth of the team is really one of the most important things at Gridline. I think that as a brokerage business, you could look at growth in two factions. You could either be the brokerage company that just focuses on scaling, meaning quantity, and or you could be the brokerage that focuses on quality. And what I think we've done very well at is quality. I'm incredibly lucky and fortunate that the team members that are part of Gridline's team of agents are incredibly successful guys, quality people, trustworthy individuals. And everywhere I go, one of the things that makes me the proudest is that when I meet Gridline clients, they typically compliment me on some of the members of my team, some of the agents that they've been involved with. So my idea is to continue growing Gridline through hiring quality people that are going to be committed to the industry, people that are going to do right by others. And I think that if we focus on quality versus quantity, our growth is going to be, it might be a little slower than the typical model, but I think that I've always had the theory and the philosophy that 10 people could do the same numbers than 100 people. So we're growing the business based on quality individuals that are willing to do the work and are looking at this as a marathon rather than a sprint.
So where are you seeing opportunities and challenges in the South Florida commercial real estate market, and what are the hottest sub-markets right now?
Well, Edwin, that question could have many answers, right? And let me start by this. South Florida is it's an incredibly compelling market at the moment from a macro perspective. You look at some of the headlines in the rest of the country, and everybody has headwinds, including South Florida. I don't want to say that we're completely isolated from that. However, South Florida in the last 3 years has really seen a radical change in its growth. And a lot of that growth has come post-pandemic by seeing the influx of a lot of companies, a lot of businesses trying to open doors in South Florida, right? So with that, tremendous macro growth at the economic level, we've seen investment, we've seen new job opportunities, and obviously that has opened up the doors for the real estate arena to benefit immensely from that, right? So we're still seeing a lot of that growth. We're still seeing a lot of companies and a lot of people that are trying to relocate to South Florida and continue expanding their business presence in the area. So as people in the real estate business, we're benefiting tremendously from that. But it also creates some issues in the marketplace where seller expectations are all of a sudden in areas where simply prices have gone up too fast, too quickly. Prices are a little too high, and paired with some of the headwinds that I was referring to, rising interest rates, rising construction costs. One of the ones that a lot of people haven't been talking about is rising insurance prices. That's all starting to kind of bring some gravity to the equation. So our job as brokers, a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with is trying to bridge the gap in pricing between buyer demand and seller expectations, right? So we're constantly having this pull and fight between buyers and sellers to try to bridge the price expectations. But luckily, as I indicated, things are trending in the right direction. Growth is happening at a steady rate. So bridging that gap is probably a lot easier in some of the markets that we see in Wynwood, Design District, Miami's Edgewater, some of the industrial submarkets are as well, because there's simply not a lot of product out there. There's a lot of demand. So typically, if you're a seller and you're interested in finally taking the leap and selling your property, you're going to have a long list of investors that are willing to at least take a swing and throw their hat in the ring and submit offers to try to achieve your pricing. So that's kind of where we see opportunities on the sell side, trying to really bring sellers to the table that are interested in selling at what are typically record high prices compared to some of the other years.
And so what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the commercial real estate industry?
That's an important question. And the commercial real estate industry, especially in South Florida, I think could be misconstrued by the fact that it's very typical in South Florida that you meet somebody at a restaurant and you see them walk up to the restaurant. They just left their Range Rover in the valet. They've been in real estate for 6 months. All of a sudden they're driving a fancy car. It's very glitzy. It's very glamorous in certain aspects, but I could tell you this for certain, Edwin, that's not reality. Reality is real estate takes a lot of hard work and immense amounts of dedication. It takes a long time for you to go from A to Z in real estate, and it takes years to really start to learn the market, get your name out there, start having your name being recognized with specific neighborhoods or in specific asset classes. And more importantly, I think that there's a huge learning curve in the first 12 to 24 months where, unfortunately, it's an industry that's predominantly commission based. So as somebody entering that arena or that new field, you have to be financially prepared to make those sacrifices in those first 12 to 24 months, and be in a position where you might not see income for those 24 months. And where I see a lot of people make mistakes is they go into the industry with a misconception that they're just going to go in and it's going to be overnight riches. And from experience, being in it myself and coached a lot of young people along the years, it takes just a lot of time, hard work, and dedication. And most people are not cut out for that. So the advice is you got to go into it with eyes wide open, understanding that it's definitely not a sprint. But if you devote the hours, if you are devoted to the industry and you go through all the rigorous conditioning and you're able to make it out past month 24, the rewards will be there and you'll get to the other side of the rainbow. And once you get there, it's an incredibly unique career. The opportunities are limitless, and it's incredible how much you can attain once you go through that kind of hazing or learning curve process in your real estate career.
So let's switch gears a little bit. You're a marathon runner. Can you share some of the marathons that you've run in and some that you'd like to run in?
Well, look, to be totally frank with you, I wouldn't call myself a marathon runner. I've done many half marathons. I used to do the Miami half marathon every year religiously. I have to admit, I've gotten a little lazy in the last couple of years and haven't done the last two Miami half marathons. I also ran the Miami full marathon, but what I will tell you is I am an avid runner, and I have been ever since I was a young kid. And, part of the parallels, if that's where we're going with this question, is running is the only place where I'm truly by myself. We go to work early in the morning and we're talking with people, we're with our colleagues, we're surrounded by others. We get home, we're with our wife, we're with our kids, we're with our family members. And all of a sudden you realize that you barely spend time by yourself. And I'm from the belief that spending time by yourself is important. I think for everyone, it allows you to kind of clear your thoughts, gather all the information that you accumulated throughout the day or weeks, and it allows you to think. And running is where I've found that time for myself. So I try to go running at least 4 or 5 times a week. It's a time when I'm able to really reflect on what's going on in my daily personal life and my work life. And I think that some of the best decisions that I've ever made have originated when I'm in that, call it that runner's high, and I'm just completely focused on myself, on my thoughts, on my feelings, on my agenda. So that's really where running comes into play. It's been incredibly beneficial for me in every facet of my life, both professional and personal.
Well, Alfredo, I want to thank you for your time. Are there any additional thoughts with respect to your career or Gridline properties that we haven't covered that you'd like to cover?
Look, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be interviewed, Edwin. I would like to make note that, I'm still incredibly bullish about South Florida real estate market. As a company owner of Gridline Properties, we're a 4-year-old company, but we've seen tremendous growth in the last 24 months. We're trying to continue growing the company by bringing in new talent, bringing in dedicated individuals that want to go into the real estate business, learn, have the opportunity to grow financially. And look, Miami and South Florida, we're babies compared to some of these larger cities. So we are incredibly confident in the area's growth projections over the next 4 to 5 years. And look, we're doing our jobs. We're keeping our profile low. We're trying to go about our business by working hard, being dedicated, doing our work in a candid and trustworthy manner. And I think that, there's immense possibilities with that. So we're excited for what the future holds. And that's kind of the gist of it. Again, excited for the opportunity to be on your show, and I thank you for your time and opportunity.
Thank you, Alfredo. We look forward to seeing your career and Gridline Properties continue to flourish. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.